what if the reason you can't lose that really stubborn belly fat has literally nothing to do with your stomach?
Right, or your willpower.
Exactly. Or, how much time you spend suffering on a treadmill. What if it has absolutely everything to do with a specific flavor that you just completely stopped eating?
It is a phenomenal question. I mean,
Right.
it completely flips all that conventional weight loss wisdom right on its head.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
We spend just so much time obsessing over the stomach.
Oh, constantly.
Right. And the exact macronutrient breakdown of our meals.
Yeah.
But we completely ignore the actual biological machinery that's processing all of it.
Yeah, so think about that almost universal image of weight loss frustration. Like maybe you picture a friend, or honestly, maybe you're picturing yourself right now. You are doing everything quote unquote right.
Yeah, you've dutifully cut out all the sugar.
You're forcing yourself to stick to that miserable low-carb diet.
You're even doing that trendy thing, right, where you take a brisk 10-minute walk immediately after dinner just to blunt the glucose kick.
Yeah, you're putting in the work. You are checking every single box of modern wellness advice.
Denying yourself the foods you actually want, tracking every step.
Trying to manipulate your insulin levels. Exactly. But then, you step on the scale, or you try to button your favorite pair of jeans, and that visceral fat around your midsection just refuses to budge.
It just sits there.
It's like it has set up this permanent, impenetrable fortress around your waistline. And where does your mind immediately go?
Oh, to self-blame. Every time.
Right. The immediate assumption is I must have slipped up. Like, my willpower just isn't strong enough.
I shouldn't have eaten that handful of almonds yesterday.
Yes. But the self-blame is honestly the most insidious part of modern diet culture.
It really is. We're taught that weight management is just this simple math equation, right? Calories in versus calories out.
And if the math isn't working, well, it's a moral failure on your part.
Exactly. But the reality of human biology, especially when we're talking about that stubborn abdominal fat, it's vastly more complex.
And frankly, much more counterintuitive than that simple equation.
Yeah, you aren't failing the math. Your internal hardware is glitching.
Which brings us to the absolute core of our mission today. We are going to look at that exact maddening frustration, but we're looking way upstream.
Oh, way upstream.
We're exploring a specific, seemingly incredibly simple 60-second morning routine, one that promises to unlock that stubborn fat.
And our roadmap for this whole journey comes from this fascinating breakdown by creator Victor Prince.
Yeah, he details a specific protocol he calls a bitter tonic.
Right, and it's designed not for your stomach, but for this overworked, completely ignored organ, the liver.
Moving the focus from the stomach to the liver is just a massive paradigm shift.
It changes everything. You're moving away from the visible symptom, the belly fat,
Right.
and finally addressing the actual metabolic processing plant that dictates where that fat goes in the first place.
So we are going to completely re-examine how we think about the liver today. We're going to uncover the lost science of quote-unquote bitter foods.
The bitter flavor is so key here.
It's wild, and why your tongue is actually like a control panel for your digestive organs.
Literally a control panel.
We'll break down the exact 3 accessible ingredients in this tonic, which, by the way, costs about $2 to make.
Super cheap.
Yeah. And finally, we'll track the biological changes you can expect to feel over a 14-day protocol. So let's just jump right into this misunderstood, wildly overworked hero of the human body.
Unsung hero is really the perfect way to describe it.
Right.
Yeah, in health and wellness circles, we always tend to fixate on the heart or the brain.
The gut microbiome. Everyone loves the gut, right?
Oh, the gut is everywhere.
Yeah.
But the liver is just quietly sitting there, right? Tucked under your right rib cage, doing an astonishing amount of heavy lifting just to keep you alive and functioning.
I mean, the breakdown we're looking at points out that the liver performs over 500 different biochemical jobs.
Over 500.
500. I can barely manage my inbox on a Monday morning, and this organ is running 6,000 simultaneous processes.
It's a chemical marvel. Like, to put that in perspective, the liver is your body's primary filtration and detoxification system.
Okay.
Every single drop of blood coming from your digestive tract passes through the liver before going anywhere else.
Wow.
It identifies and neutralizes toxins, pollutants, medications, but it's also a master synthesizer.
It makes things too.
Right. It manufactures essential blood proteins.
Yeah.
It balances your hormones, actively clearing out excess estrogen to keep your endocrine system stable.
That's huge.
It acts as a massive glycogen storage facility, regulating your blood sugar drop by drop, between meals.
It's constantly just pulling levers and turning dials behind the scenes.
Exactly, just to keep your entire biological ecosystem in a state of homeostasis.
But out of all those 500 jobs, there is one specific role that is incredibly underrated, especially for anyone listening who's constantly fighting their waistline.
Yes, the big one.
The liver is essentially the grand director of your body fat.
Precisely. It makes the executive chemical decision on what to do with the lipids, the fats you consume.
And the fat you already have stored, right?
Exactly. When you have a healthy, optimally functioning liver, it acts like a highly efficient incinerator.
I love that image.
It takes that fat, breaks it down through a process called beta oxidation, and seamlessly converts it into usable ATP energy for your cells.
But wait, here is where it gets really dark for a lot of people. When that liver becomes congested,
Right, when it's bogged down by years of modern living.
it just stops processing that fat for energy. It just throws its hands up, right?
It gives up.
And instead of burning it, it just stores it.
Eh,
And it decides to store it right there in the midsection.
It's a defense mechanism, honestly. If the processing plant is overwhelmed, it has to pack the inventory somewhere safe.
Wow.
So it shunts it outward into the abdominal cavity, creating what we call visceral fat.
Okay, I think we need to pause here and make a really, really clear distinction. Because not all fat is created equal, right?
Absolutely vital distinction.
When people say belly fat, they might be picturing two very different things.
Yes, you have two main types of fat in the midsection. The first is subcutaneous fat.
Okay.
That's the soft, jiggly, pinchable fat that sits right underneath your skin. It might cover your abs, but biologically speaking, it's relatively benign.
It's just passive energy storage.
Right. Visceral fat, on the other hand, is completely different.
Visceral fat is the hard, dense fat that pushes your stomach out from the inside.
Exactly.
It's that firm, almost beer belly look where the stomach is distended but hard to the touch.
Because it's literally packing itself around and sometimes inside your vital organs. It wraps around your liver, your intestines, your pancreas.
And here's the terrifying part, right? Visceral fat is not dormant.
No, not at all.
It's biologically active. It functions almost like a rogue endocrine organ.
It really does. It's constantly pumping out inflammatory cytokines into your bloodstream.
So it's driving systemic inflammation.
Yes, it causes severe insulin resistance, and it lays the metabolic groundwork for type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and just a host of other chronic conditions.
And if you're listening right now and thinking, well, my liver's fine, I don't have a drinking problem, so this doesn't apply to me, you really need to hear this reality check.
Yeah, this is the scary part.
There is a staggering statistic from a 2024 study published in the medical journal The Lancet. It is a jaw-dropping number. Nearly 1 in 3 American adults has a fatty liver.
1 in 3.
1 in 3.
What is truly insidious about that statistic is not just the sheer scale of the epidemic, but the complete silence of it.
Right.
The vast majority of those tens of millions of people have absolutely no idea their liver is suffocating in fat.
How is that even mathematically possible? Like, how can a third of the adult population be walking around with a vital organ marbled with fat and they don't even know it?
It seems crazy, right?
Wouldn't you feel it? Wouldn't it hurt?
You don't feel it because the liver itself lacks sensory nerve endings for pain in the way your skin or muscles do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't ache when it gets fatty. You just feel, well, off.
Off. Like,
You feel chronic fatigue, you experience brain fog, you have unexplained skin breakouts,
okay.
or you notice your waistline expanding despite eating relatively well. Furthermore, the standard medical model completely misses it early on.
Right, because most doctors aren't proactively running ultrasounds on everyone's liver during an annual physical.
Exactly. They run a standard metabolic blood panel. They look at liver enzymes like AST and ALT.
Okay, the typical blood work.
But those enzymes often don't show significant elevation until the liver damage is already quite advanced.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, literally until liver cells are actively dying and spilling their contents into the blood.
That's horrifying. So for years, the fatty liver flies completely under the radar.
Completely. You are told your blood work looks normal. Meanwhile, the visceral fat just keeps piling up.
To really help visualize what is happening inside this silent, struggling organ, there is an analogy that I think makes the mechanics of this so instantly understandable.
It's a great analogy.
If you've ever done dishes in your life, you'll get this immediately. Think of a brand new, healthy liver as a fresh kitchen sponge.
It is a perfect mechanical metaphor for how the tissue actually operates.
You take that brand new porous sponge, you run it under the faucet, and it readily soaks up a massive amount of water.
Right.
And then you squeeze it, and it wrings out completely clean, ready to absorb more.
That's your healthy liver. Easily absorbing nutrients, processing fat, filtering toxins, and then wringing itself out.
But now, picture a sponge that has been sitting on the edge of your kitchen sink for 3 weeks.
Ugh, we have all encountered that exact sponge.
Right. It's heavy, it's discolored, and it has a very specific, unpleasant texture.
It's slimy.
It is the sponge you have been using to wipe out bacon grease from the cast iron skillet and clean up oily pans. What happens to it?
It gets ruined.
Over time, after years of processing our modern dietary hazards, highly inflammatory seed oils hidden in literally everything, the refined sugars, the ultra-processed carbohydrates, your liver turns into that gross, heavy, greasy sponge.
And the defining mechanical characteristic of a greasy, clogged sponge is that it completely loses its primary function.
It's useless.
It becomes totally useless.
Yeah.
You run it under water, and the water just rolls off.
Maybe it repels the water.
You try to wring it out, and nothing happens. The grease is permanently trapped inside the porous matrix of the sponge.
So let me push back on a very common piece of advice here.
Sure.
Let's say someone's liver has reached this greasy sponge state. They have that stubborn visceral fat. If they suddenly have a wake-up call and switch to eating completely clean, steamed broccoli, boiled chicken breast, absolutely zero junk food, will that fix the problem? Will that melt the belly fat?
Mechanically speaking, the blunt answer is no.
Really?
At least not on its own, and certainly not quickly, because they have hit a fundamental metabolic roadblock.
Okay, explain that.
If the sponge is completely clogged with hardened grease, simply pouring clean water over it doesn't unclog it.
Wow. Right.
You can put all the pristine, organic, low-calorie food you want into the human body, but the central processing plant is still jammed.
It's jammed up.
The fat, already trapped inside the liver, remains trapped.
Yeah.
And because the liver is too congested to process even healthy dietary fats efficiently, it continues to shunt them into that dangerous visceral fat storage.
Wow. So you could literally be doing all the right things, eating the right foods, running on the treadmill, but your internal machinery is physically incapable of responding.
Yes.
It's literally broken at the chemical level.
You are essentially trying to drive a sports car with the parking brake permanently pulled up.
Ouch.
You can press the accelerator, the clean diet, the exercise, all you want. The engine will rev. You will burn a lot of willpower, but you aren't going to get very far until you physically release that brake.
Okay, so the immediate burning question is, how do we release the brake?
Yeah.
How does the human body naturally wring out a greasy sponge? Because there has to be a mechanism for this. We didn't evolve to just slowly fill up with fat and die. And this brings us to a substance that I think most of us only vaguely remember from a high school biology diagram: bile.
Bile. It is arguably one of the most critical, powerful, and yet least glamorous fluids the human body produces.
It really is.
It's this yellowish-green, highly alkaline liquid, and it is the absolute linchpin of metabolic health.
So going back to our sink analogy for a second, we talked about the greasy pan and the dirty sponge.
Yeah.
If you have ever stood at the sink trying to wash a frying pan coated in a thick layer of oily grease, and you only use cold water, you know it's totally useless.
Completely.
The water hits the pan, beads up, and just runs right off. The grease might smear around, but it doesn't break apart.
Because of fundamental chemistry.
Right.
Oil is hydrophobic.
Right.
Water and oil inherently repel each other. They just cannot mix.
Exactly. So what do you instinctively reach for?
The soap?
You reach for the Dawn dish soap.
Yep.
You squirt the soap in, and suddenly, magically, the grease breaks apart, lifts off the pan, and washes down the drain.
You need the soap to break the surface tension?
Well, bile is the literal dish soap for your fat.
It is a brilliant way to conceptualize the biochemistry at play here. Your digestive tract and your bloodstream are watery environments.
Okay.
The fats you eat in your diet and the fats stored deep inside your liver are massive, clunky lipid molecules. They cannot dissolve, be transported, or be burned for energy in that watery environment without an emulsifier.
And bile is the emulsifier.
Bile is that biological emulsifier.
Walk me through the actual logistics of this. Where is it made, and how does it get to the fat?
Your liver manufactures the bile. It synthesizes it from cholesterol, bile salts, and various waste products.
Okay.
It then sends this freshly made bile down a small tube to be stored and concentrated in the gallbladder, which is a tiny pear-shaped sac tucked right under the liver.
I got it.
When you consume a meal containing fat, your stomach senses it, and your gallbladder receives a signal to contract. It squirts that highly concentrated alkaline bile into your small intestine.
Like squirting soap into the sink.
Exactly. The bile surrounds the massive fat globules, breaks them apart into microscopic droplets, and allows your digestive enzymes to actually access them and convert them into energy.
So when your bile is flowing freely, like having plenty of high-quality dish soap on that pan, fat breaks down easily.
Easily.
Your digestion is smooth. Your energy levels skyrocket because your body can actually extract fuel from your food.
Yes.
And that stubborn belly fat finally has a mechanism to be dissolved and mobilized.
Exactly. But the corollary to that is where the modern health crisis lies.
Right, what goes wrong?
What happens when this bile flow becomes compromised? If your liver is congested, if it's that greasy sponge, it struggles to synthesize adequate high-quality bile.
So it's making bad soap.
Yeah, the bile it does make becomes thick, stagnant, and viscous, almost like sludge. Your gallbladder gets lazy and stops contracting fully.
It's like trying to wash that greasy cast iron skillet when the dish soap bottle is basically empty and you're just squeezing out a few dried up bubbles.
Precisely. Without adequate soap, the fat doesn't break down. It doesn't emulsify.
It just sits there.
It passes through your upper digestive tract, largely undigested, which causes horrible bloating and gastric distress.
Oh, that makes sense.
Your body doesn't get the fat-soluble vitamins or the energy it needs from the food you are eating, which is why your energy crashes in the afternoon.
Wow.
And crucially, because that fat isn't being broken down and utilized for fuel, it gets rerouted right back to the liver, congesting it even further, and is then aggressively pushed out into the abdominal cavity.
As visceral fat.
As visceral fat, it is a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle.
The doom loop.
Total doom loop. A fatty liver leads to sludgy, sluggish bile. Sluggish bile leads to poor fat breakdown. Poor fat breakdown leads to more visceral fat storage, which in turn further congests the liver, making the bile even sludgier.
Okay, so if you are listening to this, the absolute paramount goal here is clear.
Yeah.
We have to figure out how to get the bile flowing again. We need to restock the internal dish soap, thin out the sludge, and get the liver wringing itself out.
We need to turn the faucet back on.
And this is where the protocol we are examining introduces something I found absolutely mind-blowing.
It's fascinating.
When you think about treating a sluggish organ, you think of a pharmaceutical drug, a pill you swallow.
Right. Western Medicine 101.
But the trigger to get your bile flowing isn't a drug, it is a flavor. Specifically, the taste of bitterness.
This is where we see a truly beautiful, elegant intersection of evolutionary biology and modern neurology.
Okay.
The connection between the tongue and the liver is something science is just now fully mapping out, and it relies heavily on research, like a pivotal 2023 paper published in the journal Cells.
Okay, let's unpack this 2023 paper because this feels like the missing link. What exactly is happening in my body the second I taste something bitter?
The researchers in the Cells paper were investigating the complex neural networks connected to our taste buds. For a long time, the scientific consensus just thought of taste as a passive experience, a way to enjoy our meals, or evolutionarily, a way to detect and avoid poisonous plants, which are often highly bitter.
Sure, like a warning system.
But what they mapped out is that taste is an active, aggressive signaling system.
Oh, wow.
The human tongue is covered in specific receptors, particularly TAS2s, which are designed exclusively to detect bitter compounds.
Okay.
The millisecond one of those receptors binds with a bitter molecule. It fires a high-speed electrical signal directly into your brainstem.
Wait, instantaneous, like touching a hot stove.
Exactly like that. It is a reflex arc. The brainstem receives this specific bitter electrical signature, and it doesn't even wait for you to swallow the food.
It just acts.
It immediately routes a command down the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve. I hear this term thrown around constantly in wellness spaces regarding stress and anxiety. What is it doing here?
Think of the vagus nerve as the body's parasympathetic superhighway. It is a massive nerve bundle that runs from the base of your brain down through your neck and directly connects to your heart, lungs, and all your digestive organs.
Wow.
When the brain gets the bitter signal, it sends an electrical impulse racing down the vagus nerve, completely bypassing conscious thought, and delivers a direct order to the gallbladder and the liver.
Telling them what?
It tells the gallbladder, contract violently. And within minutes of that bitter taste merely touching your tongue, your gallbladder begins to spasm and squeeze. and a massive wave of fresh bile starts flowing into your gut.
So the tongue is literally the physical on switch for the liver and gallbladder's fat-burning machinery. It's the ignition switch.
It is the ignition switch. Without turning the key, the engine remains completely dormant, regardless of how much gas is in the tank.
Now, this brings up a massive caveat, and I want to highlight this because it completely changes how you have to approach this protocol.
It's so important.
We're conditioned to want the absolute easiest shortcut. So the immediate thought is, great, bitter herbs trigger bile. I'll just go to the supplement aisle, buy a plastic bottle of bitter herb extract in a gelatin capsule, and swallow it with a glass of water.
Oh, yes.
But that doesn't work, does it?
It is the most common mistake people make, and it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the biology we just discussed. Swallowing a capsule completely short-circuits the mechanism.
Because the pill bypasses the tongue.
Precisely. If you put the bitter compound inside a protective capsule, it slides right over the taste buds without interacting with them.
It's completely hidden.
The pill goes down the esophagus and sits in the acidic environment of the stomach for 20 minutes before the gelatin finally dissolves. The tongue never tastes it.
So the brain never knows.
Therefore, the TAS2R receptors never fire. The brainstem never gets the bitter memo. The vagus nerve is never stimulated. And that immediate, powerful neurological contraction of the gallbladder simply does not happen. The capsule might offer some mild, localized chemical benefit once it hits the intestines, but you have entirely missed the neurological trigger that forces the bile flush.
You must literally experience the bitterness to unlock the biological pathway.
You have to taste it.
Which makes so much profound sense when you zoom out and look at this through the lens of human history. The video breakdown we're referencing gives this incredible historical context.
It's a great perspective.
It points out that humans have intuitively utilized this exact neural pathway for thousands of years. Before every heavy meal, our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents naturally ate something deeply bitter.
It is woven into the fabric of almost every traditional culinary culture across the globe.
Like what?
If you look at authentic Mediterranean diets, traditional European cuisines, or historical Asian culinary practices, they rarely started a heavy meal with bread and butter.
Right, they didn't have dinner rolls.
No, they started with a small salad of foraged, highly bitter greens, dandelion greens, wild arugula, endive, radicchio, mustard greens.
Or they took a small shot of an acidic, bitter tonic, like raw vinegar or an aperitif.
Exactly.
They were priming the pump. They didn't know about the vagus nerve or taste-to-R receptors, but they knew that tasting those bitter leaves made their stomachs feel better after eating a heavy, fatty piece of meat.
Yes, they knew it worked.
They were sending the signal to the brain saying, a massive load of fat is coming, flood the system with dish soap now.
Exactly. They were turning on the biological dish soap well before the greasy pan ever hit the sink. Evolution designed our bodies to explicitly require that challenging, bitter signal to optimize the digestive sequence.
But then you look at our modern, highly industrialized food culture.
It's a disaster.
We have systematically, intentionally bred the bitterness out of almost everything we consume.
We really have.
Agricultural science has spent the last 100 years engineering our crops to be milder, sweeter, and rounder in flavor. We took wild, complex, bitter apples and turned them into hyper-sweet Honeycrisps.
Right.
We replaced the dense, challenging flavors of wild greens with the watery, absolute blandness of iceberg lettuce, and then we cover that lettuce in dressings made of high-fructose corn syrup and soybean oil.
And by systematically stripping the bitterness from our plates, we have effectively severed our own metabolic signaling wires.
We cut the cord.
We are constantly consuming heavy, fat-laden, ultra-processed meals, but because everything tastes sweet or salty, we are never giving our bodies the ancient biological command to release the specific fluids necessary to break those sats down.
Wow.
As Victor Prince's analysis rightly points out, this isn't magic. It is foundational physiology. We have silenced the evolutionary alarm bell that is supposed to wake up the liver.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we ring that bell again? How do we manually override a system that has been dormant for a decade?
That's where we get practical.
This is where the specific 60-second, $2 morning tonic comes into play. And what is so compelling about this is how accessible it is. You don't need a prescription.
No, not at all.
The ingredients are likely sitting in your local grocery store right now. They're completely keto-friendly, incredibly inexpensive, and it relies on just 3 specific components working in synergy. Let's deconstruct this tonic ingredient by ingredient so we understand the exact pharmacological action of what we are drinking.
Breaking down the specific biochemistry of these everyday ingredients reveals just how powerful targeted food interventions can be.
Okay, ingredient number one. This is referred to as the engine of the whole concoction, dandelion root tea.
Yes.
Now, I know when a lot of people hear the word dandelion, their mind immediately goes to the annoying yellow weed they spend their weekends trying to eradicate from their front lawn.
Mm.
But biologically, this is the primary bitter driver we are using.
The irony is that the weed we aggressively spray with herbicides is actually one of the most potent hepatic medicines in the natural world.
It's crazy.
Dandelion root has a phenomenal documented pedigree in traditional medicine. Various cultures, from Native American herbalists to traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, have utilized it for thousands of years, specifically to treat liver and gallbladder dysfunction.
And modern science is finally catching up and validating that ancient wisdom, isn't it? What does the research actually say it does?
It is very well documented. There was a specific 2017 study that isolated the active compounds in dandelion root, specifically sesquiterpene lactones and taraxastrol.
Okay, big words, but what do they do?
The researchers demonstrated that these compounds don't just mildly irritate the liver, they directly and aggressively stimulate the hepatic cells to increase bile production.
So they force the liver to work.
So it doesn't just trigger the release of whatever old sludgy bile happens to be sitting in the gallbladder, it actively commands the liver to manufacture a fresh, high-volume batch of new bile.
Effectively flushing the biliary ducts from the top down. Now, there is a very specific practical application note here that is critical if you are actually going to try this tomorrow morning. You need to purchase plain, unadulterated, roasted dandelion root tea.
This is huge.
You cannot buy the kind that has added vanilla extract or caramel flavoring or cinnamon designed to mask the taste. You can buy it loose leaf, in bulk, or in standard tea bags. But the absolute key is it has to be steeped incredibly strong.
Because, referring back to the neural mechanism we spent so much time on, it absolutely must taste bitter on the tongue.
The creator explicitly says if you take a sip and it tastes like slightly dirty hot water, you failed. You didn't steep it long enough.
Right, you need that bite.
If you are using standard tea bags, you probably need to use 2 of them in 1 mug. You have to experience that robust, earthy, almost coffee-like bitterness coating the tongue to ensure those receptors fire.
It has to wake up the system.
Okay, moving on to ingredient number 2, a whole lemon. Now, the protocol emphasizes the lemon for a very specific reason, adding a second, complementary, bitter and acidic signal to the nervous system.
Yes, the citrus provides a fascinating dual action here.
How so?
On one hand, the highly acidic lemon juice contains natural enzymes and vitamin C that mildly support the stomach's initial digestive environment.
Okay.
But biologically speaking, the real magic, the compounds that actually interact with the liver, are not in the juice.
Really? Where are they?
They are locked in the peel and the pith, which is that thick, white, spongy layer just beneath the yellow rind.
Right. The protocol notes that it is the peel oils that are the true digestive stimulator.
Exactly. The rind of a lemon is packed with potent essential oils, primarily a compound called D-limone, as well as highly concentrated flavonoids.
Okay.
When ingested, these volatile oils act as powerful cholagogues, which is a medical term for substances that specifically promote the discharge of bile from the system.
So they push the bile out.
They work in perfect synergy with the sesquiterpene lactones in the dandelion root, amplifying that electrical signal traveling down the vagus nerve and ensuring a much stronger, more sustained gallbladder contraction.
Now, there is a brilliant practical tip for incorporating this because nobody wants to sit there chewing on a raw lemon peel at 6 a.m.
No, definitely not.
To capture the whole lemon, the juice, the pith, the peel recommendation is to take whole lemons, throw them in a blender with a little water, puree the entire thing into a thick paste, and then freeze that puree into small silicone ice cube molds.
That's so smart.
Then in the morning, you just pop 1 frozen lemon cube out and drop it directly into your hot, strong dandelion tea. It melts instantly.
It is an incredibly efficient way to preserve those volatile oils, prevent the lemons from spoiling on your counter, and streamline the morning routine.
Yeah, super easy.
However, there is a massive, incredibly stern caveat regarding the lemons that we absolutely must emphasize for safety reasons.
Yes, the pesticide warning. This is crucial. If you are going to consume the peel of a fruit, the protocol insists, non-negotiably, on using certified organic lemons. Why is it so dangerous to use conventional lemons for this specific detox routine?
Because of the realities of modern agricultural supply chains. Conventional citrus fruits are subjected to intense chemical treatments.
Right, to keep the bugs away.
They are heavily sprayed with systemic pesticides while growing, and then after harvesting, they're often coated in chemical fungicides and artificial petroleum-based waxes to preserve their color and prevent mold during international transport.
Yikes.
All of those toxins are concentrated perfectly on the outermost layer of the peel.
Where all the good stuff is supposed to be.
Exactly. If your entire goal is to heal a congested, overworked liver, the absolute worst thing you could possibly do is introduce a highly concentrated, bioavailable dose of chemical toxins directly into your bloodstream first thing in the morning.
You're just making the liver work harder.
You are forcing the liver to process poison while asking it to heal.
It defeats the entire purpose of the tonic. Now, if you are in a location where organic lemons are simply impossible to find, the protocol does offer a workaround.
Right, there's a backup plan.
You have to aggressively scrub the conventional lemons using a baking soda and water soak for at least 15 minutes to strip those surface pesticides and waxes off the rind before you blend them. But organic is the incredibly strong preference here.
Just get organic if you can.
All right, that brings us to ingredient number 3, and this is the one that makes everyone stop in their tracks. I know my immediate reaction was, wait, hold on. You want me to put an oil slick in my hot tea?
It's decidedly countercultural to our modern Western palate. We are not used to drinking hot oil.
The third ingredient is extra virgin olive oil, 1 precise single tablespoon. Now, I have to ask you to explain this because on the surface, it sounds insane. We are talking about trying to burn fat, to clear fat out of the liver. Why on earth are we adding a tablespoon of pure liquid fat to our bitter morning tea?
It sounds paradoxical, but it is an absolute biological necessity based on the fail-safe mechanisms built into the gallbladder.
Okay, unpack that.
We established that the bitter taste from the dandelion and the lemon peel sends the electrical signal to get ready. It rings the alarm bell. It tells the vagus nerve to wake up the system.
Right. The ignition is on.
But the human body is highly efficient. It doesn't like to waste resources. The gallbladder has a built-in chemical safety switch. It will prime itself, it will get ready to squeeze, but it will not fully release its precious payload of bile until it physically sees a significant amount of complex fat entering the upper digestive tract.
Because bile is the dish soap for fat. It makes total sense. Why would the body dump all its expensive dish soap into the sink if there are no greasy pans to wash?
Precisely. It needs a target. So you have the robust, aggressive bitter signal from the tea and lemon telling the gallbladder, attention, prepare to contract.
And then what happens?
And then, precisely at that moment of heightened neurological anticipation, that 1 tablespoon dose of high-quality complex fat from the extra virgin olive oil arrives in the stomach. The stomach detects the lipids, releases a hormone called cholecystokinin, or CCK, and the combination of the bitter vagal nerve signal plus the physical hormonal trigger from the olive oil commands the gallbladder to definitively, powerfully contract.
It forces it open.
It forces it to dump a massive, healthy surge of bile directly into the gut to process that olive oil, and in doing so, it flushes the entire biliary system.
You are literally hacking your own anatomy. You are manually overriding a sluggish system by presenting it with the exact sequence of chemical locks and keys it requires to function.
That's exactly what it is, a biological hack.
You stir the hot tea, it will absolutely look a little oily and separated on top, but that oil slick is the trigger, pulling the trigger. But before you take that first sip, there is one golden rule.
Yes, the non-negotiable rule.
It is the absolute law of this protocol, and it ties everything we have discussed about neurology together. Do not add honey. Do not add maple syrup. Do not add sugar, stevia, monk fruit, or any artificial sweetener whatsoever.
You cannot compromise on this single step. It is the point of failure for most people.
Explain exactly why. What happens if someone thinks, I'll just sneak half a teaspoon of raw honey in there just to take the edge off the bitterness so I can actually swallow it?
If you introduce sweetness, you instantly and completely neutralize the entire neurological mechanism.
Instantly.
The human brain is evolutionarily hardwired to prioritize the taste of sweetness above all else because sweetness signals instant, safe, high-calorie energy.
Right.
If you put honey in that tea, the sweet receptors on your tongue will instantly overpower and mute the bitter receptors.
The brain just ignores the bitter.
The electrical signal sent to the brainstem changes from bitter, prepare for digestion, to sugar, release insulin. The vagus nerve never receives the command to contract the gallbladder, the bile stays stagnant, and the entire biological point of the tonic is destroyed.
Wow. So you ruin the whole thing for a little bit of honey.
At that point, you are literally just drinking a cup of hot, oily, sweet water that will probably just make you nauseous.
So you have to embrace the suck. You have to lean into the bitterness. The creator of the protocol admits this openly. He says, I'm not going to lie to you. The first sip on day one is shocking. It is bitter and oily.
Is definitely an acquired taste.
But he also promises a fascinating physiological adaptation. By week 2, your body actually starts craving that exact flavor profile because on a cellular level, your liver knows exactly what it needs and recognizes the relief it brings.
The body adapts very quickly.
Okay, so we have our $2 60-second tonic fully deconstructed, strong dark dandelion tea, a frozen cube of blended whole lemon, and a 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil as the trigger. No sweetness allowed. Now, how exactly do we implement this? Let's dive into the daily protocol and the specific 14-day timeline of bodily changes.
The timing, the fasting window, and the sequencing here are just as critical to the success of the flush as the ingredients themselves.
The rules of engagement are very clear. You brew and drink this tonic first thing in the morning, immediately upon waking up on a completely empty stomach.
Yes, empty stomach is key.
Before you eat a single bite of food, and critically, before you consume your morning coffee, and you don't chug it like a shot of tequila, you sip it slowly, allowing it to wash over the tongue over about a 10-minute period.
Give the receptors time to work.
Exactly. But then comes what is arguably the most crucial and most frequently violated part of the protocol, the 30 to 45-minute fasting gap.
Yes. You must wait an absolute minimum of 30 to 45 minutes after finishing the last sip of the tonic before you consume any solid food, any calories, or any coffee.
Explain the physiology of that gap. Why is sitting there doing nothing for 45 minutes so incredibly important?
That uninterrupted window is where the actual therapeutic magic takes place.
Sure.
By drinking the tonic, you have just initiated a cascading series of events.
The dominoes are falling.
You fired the vagus nerve, you triggered the CCK hormone, and you forced a significant release of built-up bile and stimulated the liver to flush. If you immediately dump a heavy bowl of oatmeal, a plate of eggs, or a highly acidic cup of coffee into your stomach 2 minutes later, you instantly divert the body's blood flow, energy, and resources away from the hepatic flushing process and redirect it toward active gastric digestion.
You're confusing the body.
By strictly fasting for those 45 minutes, you are giving the liver and the gallbladder a clear, uninterrupted runway to do their house cleaning. The bile needs time to move through the ducts, bind with toxins, and enter the intestines without competing with a new load of food.
It is exactly like spraying a heavy-duty degreaser onto that dirty stovetop. If you immediately wipe it off with a towel 3 seconds later, it does nothing.
Yeah.
You have to spray it, walk away, let the chemicals work on the grease for 10 minutes, and then you can easily wipe it away. You have to let it sit.
That's a perfect analogy. Now, the protocol offers an immediate, fascinating 20-minute test that you can perform on yourself right after your very first cup to see if it's working. You are supposed to sit quietly and monitor your body for 2 specific sensations. Number 1, do you feel a distinct, warm furnace sensation radiating in the center of your stomach? And number 2, do you feel instantly, noticeably less bloated than you did when you woke up?
And if you can answer yes to either of those questions, you are experiencing incredibly direct, real-time biofeedback from your nervous system.
What exactly is that physical sensation? Why does it feel warm?
That feeling of a warm, radiating furnace or the sudden, almost deflation-like relief of gastric pressure and morning bloating is the literal physical sensation of dormant, highly alkaline bile suddenly rushing through the biliary ducts.
Wow.
It's passing the sphincter of Oddi and flowing freely into the upper intestines. The alkalinity of the bile neutralizing the stomach acid creates a mild exothermic reaction, which you perceive as heat. It is the physical feeling of your metabolic machinery aggressively turning back on. And if you don't feel that warm furnace on day 1, the guidance is very clear. Do not panic and do not quit. If your liver has been operating as a greasy, clogged sponge for the last 15 years, it might take 4 or 5 days of consistent morning signaling to finally wake the system back up and thin out the sludge.
Be patient with it.
So let's track the exact physiological timeline outlined in the protocol. If you commit to this every single morning, what exactly happens in week 1 from days 1 through 5?
The early functional changes are quite specific and sometimes slightly uncomfortable as the body adapts. During days 1 through 3, it is highly common to experience slight, transient nausea roughly 20 minutes after drinking the tonic.
Which makes perfect mechanical sense, right? You are suddenly pushing a massive surge of bile and trapped toxins into a digestive tract that hasn't seen that volume of fluid in years.
It's a shock to the system.
If the nausea hits hard, the protocol suggests a simple modification. Just cut the extra virgin olive oil dose down to half a tablespoon for the next few days while your body acclimates, and then slowly taper back up. But then we push through and we hit days 4 and 5. What is the major biological shift here?
By the end of that first work week, assuming consistency, you begin to see profound functional improvements. The chronic morning bloating, that feeling of waking up already feeling full and distended, typically begins to disappear entirely.
That alone is worth it for a lot of people.
Bowel movements become significantly more regular, solid, and complete. This is a direct mechanical result of the improved bile flow, as bile acts as the primary natural lubricant and antimicrobial agent for the colon. Furthermore, and this is often the most surprising to people, many notice their skin rapidly beginning to clear up.
The skin, I want to double click on this because it seems so disconnected. Why does drinking a liver tonic suddenly cure a breakout on your chin?
Because the skin and the liver are intimately connected, they are both primary excretory organs. When the liver is profoundly congested and failing to filter out environmental toxins, excess hormones, or metabolic waste adequately, the body panics.
It has to put the garbage somewhere.
It has to get those toxins out somehow, so it reroutes them away from the failing liver and pushes them out through the largest secondary exit route available, the skin.
Okay.
This manifests as cystic acne, rosacea, eczema, or just a dull, inflamed complexion. When your skin suddenly clears up on day 5 of this protocol, it is not a cosmetic coincidence.
It's a sign of internal healing.
It's a visible biological sign that the internal primary filter of the liver is finally unclogged and doing its job properly again, taking the toxic burden off the skin.
Okay, so that is week 1. The machinery is humming again. The sponge is ringing out. Let's move into week 2, days 10 through 14. This is where the really exciting, life-changing milestones start occurring. The first massive shift reported in week 2 is a total transformation in morning energy.
And that energy shift is purely metabolic. Because you are finally producing the bile necessary to emulsify fats, you are actually extracting usable caloric energy from your stored and dietary fats.
You are waking up with this natural, sustained energy without feeling like you need to drag your lifeless body into the kitchen to slam a 16-ounce iced coffee just to achieve baseline human consciousness. Your body is fueling itself, and then crucially, by days 10 through 14, you reach the milestone everyone came here for.
The measurable mobilization of the visceral adipose tissue.
Yes. You start noticing that your pants are fitting just a little bit looser, specifically around the midsection and the upper waist. And it is incredibly important to note that this is not just the illusion of water weight dropping.
No, it's not water weight at all.
This is the dense, stubborn, inflammatory, visceral fat finally starting to break down and mobilize, purely because the liver is now capable of processing it and burning it for fuel instead of hoarding it.
It is incredibly validating for someone who has struggled with metabolic resistance for years. It proves the system isn't broken, it was just jammed. However, this brings us to a critical juncture in our deep dive.
Right.
We have to provide a necessary reality check, discussing the caveats, the contraindications, and looking at it through a holistic lens of overall health. Because human biology is rarely solved by a single magic trick.
Absolutely. Let me play the skeptic for a second, because human nature is predictable. If I commit to drinking this magical, bitter, oily tea every single morning, does that mean my liver is protected and I can hit the drive-thru for lunch, eat highly processed fast food, crush a sleeve of cookies at night, and still expect to lose my belly fat?
The biological reality shuts that idea down unequivocally.
Yep.
And from a purely physiological standpoint, that approach is disastrous. There is absolutely no magic bullet that can override a chronically toxic environment.
The protocol explicitly defines this bitter drink as a multiplier of your efforts, not a standalone strategy that replaces a good diet.
Think back to the sponge analogy. The morning tonic is highly effective at wringing out the greasy sponge.
Yeah.
But if you immediately follow that up at lunchtime by pouring hot liquid baking grease right back onto the freshly cleaned sponge, which is exactly what a diet consisting of ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, and inflammatory industrial seed oils does, you are completely, utterly negating the work you just did.
You're back to square one.
You are taking one step forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah.
The tonic only exerts its fat-burning power if you are simultaneously providing the body with the right building blocks.
The foundation still matters. You have to eat real whole foods, high-quality proteins, eggs, grass-fed meat, fibrous vegetables, and healthy, unrefined fats.
Mm.
You have to give the newly unclogged liver clean, premium fuel to process once you have finally cleared the blockage.
Exactly. The tonic powerfully multiplies the effects of a clean whole food diet, but it cannot and will not outwork a highly inflammatory toxic one.
The breakdown also synthesizes a much broader perspective on permanent belly fat loss, dividing the strategy into what are called the two pillars. The liver work, which is everything we have discussed with this dandelion and lemon tonic, is the first crucial pillar. But what is the second pillar that has to run concurrently?
The second pillar is the gut, specifically the microbiome. The protocol stresses that you have to actively continue your gut healing work alongside the liver flushing.
This means incorporating a high-quality multi-strain probiotic or consistently eating fermented foods like probiotic yogurts, kefir, or raw sauerkraut. Why are both necessary?
Because they operate in a symbiotic loop. They complement each other perfectly. The liver filters the blood and produces the bile. But once that bile enters the intestines, it interacts heavily with your gut bacteria.
They talk to each other.
A healthy microbiome helps break down food further, extracts different nutrients, and manages localized inflammation in the intestinal wall. If your liver is clean but your gut is a dysbiotic mess of bad bacteria, you will still suffer from systemic inflammation that holds weight loss.
So they have to work as a team.
One pillar does not replace the other. A robust, diverse microbiome and a clean, high-functioning liver are the twin engines required for optimal metabolic health.
Now, before anyone listening rushes to their pantry to start aggressively brewing dandelion roots and blending whole lemons, we need to carefully run through the crucial medical contraindications. This protocol is highly biologically active. It forces organs to contract. That means it requires respect, caution, and common sense.
Definitely.
First scenario. What if a listener has had their gallbladder surgically removed? Can they still utilize this tonic?
Yes, they can, but with a highly critical modification to the ingredients. When you have your gallbladder removed, you no longer have a storage sac to concentrate and hold the bile.
Right.
Instead, your liver is constantly trickling a very slow, diluted stream of bile directly into your intestine 24 hours a day. If you hit that compromised system with a massive, full tablespoon of pure olive oil, you will completely overwhelm that slow trickle.
It's too much fat at once.
The fat will remain undigested, and it will cause severe gastric distress, cramping, and likely explosive diarrhea.
Oh, wow. Nobody wants that.
The explicit guidance for those without a gallbladder is to drastically reduce the olive oil to just 1 single teaspoon to start. This acts as a much gentler trigger for the liver to upregulate production without overwhelming the digestive tract.
Okay, second major medical warning. Active gallstones.
This is a severe red flag. If you have been diagnosed with or strongly suspect you have active gallstones, you absolutely must consult your physician or gastroenterologist before attempting any bitter protocol.
Walk us through the mechanical danger there. Why is it so risky?
Remember the mechanism we discussed. The bitter herbs combined with the fat trigger a rapid, violent contraction of the gallbladder to expel bile.
Right, the squeezing.
If there are hardened, calcified stones sitting inside that gallbladder, that powerful contraction can inadvertently force a stone out of the sac and wedge it directly into the narrow common bile duct, causing a total blockage.
It sounds horrible.
This is an excruciatingly painful condition. It backs up bile into the liver, causing jaundice. And it is an acute medical emergency that often requires immediate surgery. So if stones are present, self-directed gallbladder flushing is highly dangerous.
And finally, the protocol issues a stern warning regarding prescription medications. Because dandelion root is a potent biologically active botanical, it can significantly alter hepatic function.
Specifically, it influences the CYP450 enzyme pathways in the liver, which is the exact system responsible for metabolizing and clearing most pharmaceutical drugs.
Okay, so it changes how your body processes pills.
If you stimulate those pathways with dandelion, it can alter how quickly your body clears certain drugs from your bloodstream. This is particularly dangerous if you are on precise dosages of blood thinners, immunosuppressants, or specific liver medications.
It could make them stop working.
The botanical can cause the drug to clear too fast, rendering it ineffective, or build up too slowly, causing toxicity. Therefore, a pharmacist or doctor's sign-off is mandatory if you're managing a chronic condition with prescription medication.
It is always the mark of a truly credible, scientifically grounded protocol when they openly discuss the strict limitations and potential dangers, rather than blindly selling it as a risk-free panacea for every single human on Earth.
Absolutely. True health interventions respect biochemical individuality.
Okay, we have covered an immense, incredibly dense amount of biological ground today. Let's recap the journey we just took. We started with the sheer, blinding frustration of doing everything right but still carrying stubborn belly fat, and we completely flipped the paradigm.
We established that for millions of people, that stubborn visceral fat is largely a liver processing problem, not a stomach calorie problem. Decades of modern processed diets turn the liver into a greasy, clogged sponge, rendering it unable to burn fat, forcing it instead to store it dangerously around the vital organs.
We learned that the body's natural biological dish soap, designed to dissolve and metabolize that fat, is bile. But because our livers are congested, our bile has become sluggish, stagnant, and completely ineffective at emulsifying the liquids we consume.
And we discovered the ancient neurological key to unlocking that bile flow: the taste of bitterness. We explored the ancestral brain-gallbladder connection, how TS2R receptors on the tongue send an instant electrical signal down the vagus nerve, triggering the release of bile within minutes of tasting a deeply bitter compound.
Which led us directly to the $2 60-second morning tonic, the engine. Strong, unflavored, roasted dandelion root tea to command the liver to produce fresh bile. The second signal, a frozen cube of blended whole organic lemon, utilizing the volatile oils in the peel to amplify the vagal nerve signal.
And finally, the trigger.
Right. 1 precise tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil to chemically force the gallbladder to dump its contents. Taken strictly on an empty stomach, followed by a mandatory 45-minute fasting window, executed over a 14-day protocol to violently wake the digestive system back up. It is a brilliant, elegant synthesis of modern gastroenterology and ancestral dietary wisdom.
It really is a masterclass in how our bodies are designed to interact with our environment, and leaves us with something quite profound to consider regarding our modern relationship with food.
If we zoom out and connect all of this biochemistry to the bigger picture of how we live our lives, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought, something to just mull over as you go about your day and plan your next meal.
Yeah, think about this.
If our internal machinery, vital, absolutely life-sustaining machinery like the liver and the gallbladder, relies so heavily on specific, challenging taste profiles, like extreme bitterness, simply to turn on and function properly, what other biological systems might we have accidentally put to sleep?
It is a staggering, almost unsettling question. By utilizing modern agriculture and food science to engineer all the robust, complex, and difficult flavors out of our modern diet in favor of an endless, smooth, hyper-palatable sweetness, what other vital electrical signals are we failing to send to our own brains?
What other ancient metabolic pathways are lying entirely dormant inside you right now, just waiting for the right flavor, the right compound, the right electrical signal to finally wake them back up? Think about that the next time you look at a plate of food. Are you just feeding your stomach, or are you programming your biology? Thanks for joining us in this deep dive. We will see you next time.